Councillor Dunn. I have no announcements for tonight. We'll move on to attendances, apologies and applications for leave of absence. I do not believe we have any apologies tonight. Applications for leave of absence, councillors, do we have any? No? Okay. Councillors, item 4, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest?
Sorry. And I do apologise because I did not have the microphone on. Okay. Councillors, no declarations of interest? Thank you. We have no deputations tonight. We have no statements from members of the public. We do have some questions that have been emailed in to the town. The first one is from Ms. Noni Jebberson of Barton Parade, Bassendean. How does the town of Bassendean intend to modify tree pruning practices on those streets where the overhead power lines have been upgraded to ABC aerial bundled conductor? I'd ask Mr. Adams if he would like to answer that particular question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, the pruning of trees where the overhead conductor network has been changed to ABC bundled will alter the tree pruning slightly. However, as these trees have been subjected to ongoing maintenance for many years under the power lines, they'll still need to be maintained with pruning to manage their epicormic growth. The change from overhead conductors to ABC bundled results in a reduced clearance zone, but we still need to maintain that clearance zone. So there will be some impact, but it won't be large.
Thank you. The other question I have is from Mr. Yates of Thompson Road, Success Hill. In the Bassendean recommendations collected from the community and accepted by council in November 2019, development and rezoning incentives were to become part of future planning outcomes like the Local Planning Scheme 11 currently in the finalisation phase. Is it envisaged that the development and rezoning incentives will include A, higher density classifications for SPP 3.6 developer contributions for infrastructure, B, development benefits for use of smarter, cooler construction surface treatments, C, closer density alignment with the already approved local planning strategy, and D, increases to the March 2018 figure of 4,150 additional homes by 2050 because the net population of Perth is predicted to reach more than 4 million in the early 2040s, making Perth the third largest city in Australia. And if the council agrees, what should this revised additional homes figure be and by when? Now, I have been provided a response by Mr. Gibson. Mr. Gibson, would you like to respond very quickly to this?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the dwelling target for the town is in accordance with the direction provided by the state government.
Thank you. Now, these questions and the responses will be provided in the minutes of the meeting when they're published in due course. We move on to petitions where there are none. Councillors, we now move on to confirmation of the minutes. 9.1, the officer recommendation that the minutes of the special council meeting of the 11th of July 2023 be received and confirmed as a true and correct record. Do I have a mover? Councillor Ames, seconded. Councillor McLennan, anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Which brings us to 9.2, which is the confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary council meeting of the 27th of June 23. officer recommendation that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting of 27th of June 2023 be received and confirmed as a true and correct record. Do I have a mover? Councillor McWilliam, a seconder. Councillor Ames, anyone against? I'll declare that carried. There is no business deferred from the previous meeting. We also have nil external committee reports and updates on this agenda. This now brings us to the adoption of the officer reports en bloc. Councillors, I have 2 items coming out of en bloc. The first one being 12.3, rights of way dedications. And the second one is 12.5, lease agreement with Amana Living for part of Ashfield Community Centre. Councillors, are there any other items coming out of en bloc? So with that, councillors, could I have a mover for the remaining items? Councillor Carter, seconded. Councillor McLennan. Anyone against? I'll declare that carried. So, councillors, this will bring us to the rights of way dedication, 12.3. This was covered fairly comprehensively last week, but I will ask the officer, would you like to speak to this in any way? Okay, councillors, are there any questions on this before we move to the officer recommendation? No? Okay. So we do have also, I'm aware of an amendment that has been proposed by Councillor Carter. So, Councillor Carter, would you like to move your amendment? Or we've got the officer recommendation, but your amendment is what I consider a minor amendment. So,
point of order, Mayor. Can we please have the officer's recommendation moved and seconded to bring it to debate?
Councillor Polifka? Can I just, Councillor Wilding as well, you want to second it? I will actually indicate that advice received is that I can put it to the floor, the officer recommendation, and also the amendment. So what I would like to do is read out the officer's recommendation. Just give me a minute to scroll through to get that. So the officer's recommendation for 12.3 is that Council 1 authorises a request being made to the Minister for Lands pursuant to Section 56 of the Land Administration Act 1997 to dedicate right-of-way 8, 9 and 14 as roads. And 2, notes that the town will undertake public consultation on the proposal to name right-of-way 8 as Woods Lane and right-of-way 9 as Horgan Lane. Now that's the officer's recommendation. Could I please just ask Councillor Carter to provide what her amendment would be? I'm asking you to provide what your amendment would be.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. My amendment would be to replace the name Horgan Lane with the name Kalea Lane. And I have reasons for that.
Okay. So, councillors, we have the officer recommendation and we have an amendment. So I would like to call on councillors to provide a mover for one or other of those.
Sorry, just as a point of order, is it possible for the person proposing the amendment to seek the approval of those that have moved it? And if we accept that, then that would become part of the substantive? And I'm happy to accept the amendment being put forward.
Okay. So you're moving the officer's recommendation. Councillor Wilding, you're seconding? Okay.
Yeah, and I'm accepting the amendment.
So, Councillor Carter, you would like to put forward your amendment?
Have I not done that yet?
You've read it out.
Okay, I would like to put forward my amendment.
And Councillor Polifka,
Yes,
you'd like to
as the
accept
mover,
that?
I would accept that amendment. Councillor Wilding.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I accept it as well.
Okay. So we have moved the officer's recommendation. We now have an amendment. Do we have anyone against the amendment? Okay, so that means we have a mover and a seconder for the officer's recommendation with the amendment. Do we have anyone against at all for that? No? Okay, so I'll have a rise of hands, please, for those in support of the officer's recommendation with the amendment. That's carried unanimously. Okay, now the lease, number 12.5 is the lease arrangement with Amana Living for part of Ashfield Community Centre. Now, there are confidential attachments to this document. So the first question I would ask councillors is, if we are going to ask questions relating to the confidential attachments, we will need to go behind closed doors. But first of all, I would ask the officer if you would like to have anything to say about this particular item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, just very, very briefly, just to confirm that the Minister for Lands has approved or given consent to the lease that's attached in the confidential attachments. And secondly, there was a query last week at the briefing session in terms of the potential financial benefit to the town under the lease agreement compared to a current regular hire agreement arrangement that they've been operating under. And I could advise that the two options as the lease agreement is currently formed are almost identical in terms of financial benefit to the town. Thank you.
So councillors, do you have any questions on this item that can be asked in the public forum, or if you do have questions that relate to the confidential attachments, just let me know now so that we can go behind closed doors. Councillor Carter?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I suspect mine is confidential because it does mention
Okay.
the lease.
So, so councillors, can I have a mover to go? Councillor Wilding, seconded. Councillor Carter. Is there anyone against? Okay, so we'll move behind closed doors. And councillors, if we just wait for the this up at the moment. Councillors, just bear with me for the moment. Okay, so councillors, we are going to go to the vote. We have an officer's recommendation for item 12.5. I'll read out that officer's recommendation that council enters into the lease agreement with Amana Living attached to this report for the day centre and an adjacent office forming part of the Ashfield Community Centre situated at 2 Colston Road, Ashfield. Do I have a mover for that officer's recommendation? Councillor Ames, seconded. Councillor McWilliam. Do I have anyone against? Councillor Carter. We enter into debate. Councillor Ames, would you like to open?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. After a very lengthy briefing session last week, and also it has been advised by Mr White that the Minister for Lands has already proved that we are moving forward positively with this lease. A lot of my other conversation does relate to the confidential matter that I don't think would be appropriate to bring up in this forum. So that really sort of cuts my discussion regarding the officer's recommendation, why I support it. But I'd love to pass on to my other councillors to see if they'd like to add anything and also move forward with the debate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor McWilliam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councillor Ames' view. I think that the officer's report covers thoroughly what the body is, in this case Amana Living, is what attributes it's supposed to have, and it seems to meet all of those. It's been approved, and I can't see any reason to not proceed.
Councillor Carter, you're against?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. My reasons are nothing against the lease, nothing against Amana at all, but it's that I just don't think this is the best deal for the town of Bassendean. So I will leave it at that and just oppose it for that reason.
Thank you. Any other councillors for? Any other councillors against? Councillor Polifka? Councillor McWilliam, if you turn off your microphone.
Yes. I mean, in terms of the decision maker for this, I mean, it is the council. So, I mean, whether there's a pre-approval by the minister is neither here nor there. I mean, ultimately, we are charged with making this decision. In terms of the decision, I guess for me it comes down to the number of residents of Bassendean that would be utilising this community facility in this way. So just in terms of the relatively small number and the fact that it's a pretty good facility that we've got, and I'd like to see us potentially redeploy that in another way. So that's my reasoning for voting against it.
Thank you, Councillor Polifka. Councillors, do we have any more debate for or against? Councillor Wilding?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm voting for the item as proposed because given the circumstances and given that the lease is a vehicle to provide a positive outcome for our community, it's a vehicle to make sure that we have a smooth, respectful and dignified transition out of our senior services, and this is a way to do that. With regard to Councillor Polifka's comments that it's a small number of people, I don't share those sentiments at all. I think this council has paid a lot of attention to a small number of people, and with good reason, with the community transport service, and we've put resources and we've put time into that. Why this group of people would be any different, I absolutely struggle to see. And for that reason, I would support the officer's recommendation.
Okay, councillors, I'll now ask to put this to the vote. All those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please raise your hand. So we have Councillor McLennan, Councillor McWilliam, Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Wilding, Councillor Ames. Those against, please raise your hand. Councillor Polifka and Councillor Carter are voting against. So I declare that carried. So, councillors, item 13 is motions of which previous notice has been given. I don't believe there are any. Announcements of notice of motion for the next meeting. I don't believe there are any. There's no urgent business. Confidential business has been dealt with. And we now come to the closure of the meeting at 6:25 p.m. The next briefing session will be held on Tuesday, the 15th of August 2023, commencing at 6 p.m. The next ordinary council meeting will be held on Tuesday, the 22nd of August 2023, commencing at 6 p.m. Councillors, we will now ask for the audio to be turned off and conclude this meeting.